All right, so we've been keeping up with these ongoing pointless negotiations between Joe Biden and the Republican Party on this next piece of infrastructure legislation that he's trying to put forward, and trying to put forward, I'll put that in quotations because he's not really trying. And the reason why I call these pointless negotiations is that we knew from the beginning exactly how this was going to play out. We've seen this play out multiple times. The recent example that I bring up is under the Obama administration. His Obamacare policy, the Affordable Care Act, was a right-wing think tank policy that came out of the Heritage Foundation that then was successively watered down over time in negotiations with Republicans. And then guess what? When it came time to vote for it, 0 Republicans ended up voting for it. So this is the playbook that they use over and over and over again. We just saw it again on the January 6th Commission. They pretended like, oh, we're just looking for some bipartisanship. They got the bipartisanship, and then none of them really supported it. There wasn't enough to get it passed. And so this is exactly what was always going to happen with these infrastructure negotiations. First of all, what Joe Biden put forward originally as his initial proposal for infrastructure, even before consulting the Republican Party, was not good enough, okay? It was $2 trillion drawn out over 8 years. That's like a third yearly of what we spend on our military budget. It's nowhere close to what the American Society for Civil Engineers, the actual experts on the issue, estimate that we need. So it was completely pathetic from the beginning. Then he decides to water it down with Republicans, again, completely unnecessarily, and even suggesting that he would go so far as to protect the Trump tax returns, the Trump tax cuts, in order to get bipartisanship on this. So it's been completely ridiculous from the beginning. These bills are not even worth passing at this point. They're so watered down and so corrupted. I mean, this most recent one that he bragged about, he came out the other day with this group of bipartisan senators, and he's like, we finally struck a deal, we've got our deal together, and it's just pathetic. It's nothing. It's $953 billion drawn out over that same time period in new spending. I think it's only actually 500 in new spending, but $953 billion infrastructure. What are you even talking about? This is pathetic. The American Society of Civil Engineers estimates we need at least $1 trillion per year in order to get our infrastructure up to a grade of a B+. Okay, so this is not something that we can even begin to entertain as a serious proposal. Not only that, but there are also concerns that this is just a privatization scheme where they're going to take our infrastructure, do these asset recycling programs, and pay for it in ways where it just leads to increased privatization and really the screwing over of average Americans on that front. So it's a laughable deal. It's not something that should be entertained. And yet, it's already collapsed, okay? So this was literally yesterday. They brought out this entire crowd. They're literally going out there bragging about it and saying, this is proof that we can work in a bipartisan way and we don't need to push through what the lefties want and this big, bold infrastructure package. We can do it with each other. And they did this. They parade themselves out there. They brag about it. They start, running victory laps. And then already, not one goddamn day later, it's already completely falling apart. Here's from Eric Watson. GOP Senator Jerry Moran is wavering in his support of the bipartisan infrastructure deal. He wants assurances from Senator Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema that they will oppose reconciliation for him to stay on board. So what does he mean by this? So the plan that Joe Biden had to get this bipartisan infrastructure deal done, okay, the Republican Party was never going to go for a lot of the other, what he calls human infrastructure investments. They were never going to support that. They were never going to support tax increases on the wealthy, etc. So there was a lot of stuff that they had red lines in the sand. They were never going to even approach. So Joe Biden's idea was, let's break this down into 2 different infrastructure package and have the one that the Republicans, the light version of it, that the Republicans will be okay with, and then we'll have one that'll be just along Democratic Party lines, and we'll have that one go through the process of budget reconciliation. And why is this like that? We'll have that one go through the process of budget reconciliation, and therefore we'll have 2 different bills, a dual track kind of set here, so the Republicans can have their bipartisan piece, then we'll go back and do a partisan one, so we can get everything in the end passed through. Okay, this was not going to work, and it's obviously not going to work if these Republicans who were signing off on the bipartisan version are telling them that they can no longer support the partisan version if they are going to do this together. So this is them holding them hostage, all right? And so this basically completely eradicates any chance that there was to actually have this deal happen, because as Nancy Pelosi even said, and as Joe Biden even said, they have to do the 2-part thing. You can't just ditch the latter part of this. You can't just have a bipartisan, watered down, pathetic package and then that be the end of it. Of course, you would need a second one to then make the actual more legitimate investments. And so this is done. I mean, this is not going to happen. If this is the attitude that those Republicans who said they were going to compromise and do a bipartisan deal, if this is their attitude, it's not happening, period. That's the end of it. And so as AOC pointed out here, wow, who could have possibly predicted that Senate Democrats were wasting months of a Democratic majority's precious time negotiating in bad faith just to suddenly renege on a bipartisan agreement with new mercurial demands after doing exactly that same thing with the January 6th Commission. So listen, We've seen this playbook before, okay? She's completely right. This was not unexpected. Not only is this not unexpected, but if you did not see this coming, then you're delusional, okay? This was very clear from the beginning that this was the playbook that they were rolling out. Any piece of bipartisan infrastructure that's going to be put forward is not going to be enough, so it's not even worth supporting in the first place. But even then, they're not even willing to do this if it means that Democrats would follow it up with another bill that would be more bold and would be a partisan bill. So this is the Republican Party solidifying. And if anybody is still hanging on to this notion of bipartisanship after this, they're completely too far gone. But this is the Republican Party solidifying. They will not even entertain the thought of bipartisanship if it means that any of the priorities that Joe Biden says that he supports are going to actually be followed through on in any concrete and actionable way. So AOC is 100% right. This was doomed from the beginning, and it's really an embarrassing failure for all of these moderates or centrists, as they call themselves, that bipartisanship is a legitimate path to passing good legislation.